Hello there. This is Blue. She's a client's horse, young thoroughbred. Hasn't been on the float, just been trucked. What we're going to do today in the first lesson is go through some groundwork quickly and get most of the float loading done today. What we're doing here is I'm just using a stick as an extension of my hand or arm. Whatever you use for a driving tool should be used as a friendly tool as well. If the horse is scared of what you're using for driving, then you can't use it for driving. Okay, first thing I'm going to do here is just move quadrant 1 backwards. Just get Blue moving backwards. Just giving her a little tap on the chest if I need to. At this stage, I have to do a lot of moving myself because this is her first time and she doesn't know what she's doing, and we're trying to teach her at the same time. Right, looking at the quadrants, quadrant 1 from under the chin outwards, delicate quadrant in through there. Quadrant 2, side of the neck. Quadrant 3, side of the horse. Quadrant 4, if Blue decides to stand still. Quadrant 4, just in the rear quarter there. Quadrant 5, under the tail and out backwards. So when I say pushing a quadrant, that's what I'm talking about. I'm pushing that particular quadrant. So we're going to push quadrant 4 with a little bit of quadrant 1. A little bit of quadrant 1 there, just to get a little bit of backwards motion and finish on a forward step. Today we're just practicing the groundwork, not getting it perfect, but enough for her to understand so we can work with her to get her on the float. Just pushing quadrant 4 around, keep asking until I get what I want in a nice straight line. Each time I get what I want, I release and praise. When you're praising, remember to rub and not tap. Tapping means to move a quadrant. Praising means to stay still. Pushing quadrant 4, just asking it to come round. Might need to give a little bit of a guide on quadrant 1, but try not to bend the head around if we can. Want to move the back quarter around. Without me walking around in a circle as well, I'm going a direct line through quadrant 4. Alright, what we'll look at now is just a bit of front passing. Nothing too flash. Let's get those front legs moving across. Just waiting for the front legs to move across. Don't let a head come back past my hand. If it does, I need to block it. Remember not to strike, but to block. There's a difference. And the other side, just pushing the front legs across, bending the head and release. And praise. When I'm pushing the quadrant, I'm just aiming for the front knot. If you've got a rope halter on, just the front knot over the nose there. Right, we're going to look at a little bit of side passing. going to be when we're doing side passing, just pushing what quadrant I need to at any one time. It's not two quadrants at once. So it could be 3, 4, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. And push it across sideways. Right, the other side. 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3. Right, we're going to look at a bit of lunging now. Just ask her to follow a field out to the left, drive from quadrant 5 or the top of quadrant 4. Lunging is like riding. When you start getting the horse moving forward, you don't want to keep kicking. You just re-ask if she stops. And we don't want a lot of flash lunging. We just want enough, as I said, to get through today and to get her going on the float. Alright, back the other direction. Make sure we do both directions. We're going to have to do both directions when we go on the float. Don't need to worry about trotting or cantering on the lunge when it comes to float loading. Alright, now we're ready to start looking at some float loading. We've done basic groundwork to a adequate standard to get what we want with the floating. So what we're going to do here is going to float lunge on one side of the float to the other side of the float, in between me and the float. Safe zone on one side, safe zone on the other side. The idea here is that she doesn't smack into me and walks sensibly between me and the float. If she is going to knock into me, I'll give her a flick of my hand in quadrant 3. Let her rest when she gets to the other side. Take across the other way. Now as she does it better, I make the distance between me and the float slightly closer. So the gap will be slightly tighter for her to get through without knocking into me or pushing me out of the way. Obviously, I try stand my ground as much as I can if she is going to knock into me, but safety first, and if you do have to move, you have to move. And then just try again. You should be able to read the situation. Some horses will come across a little bit quicker if they're a little bit scared. Blue is not too bad. She's quite comfortable with this, but some will trot through, and so just watch yourself when that happens. Just pushing quadrant 3 away from me slightly, then just giving a little pull on the head collar just to say, hey, you can stop over that side of the float. So at the moment we've got comfortable zone on each side of the float. Making the gap a little bit tighter. Ask her to come back through again. If she pushes into you, back her up. Push her back around away from you. And let her go through. As I said before, watch out if they're a little bit more fired up and they're trotting between you and the float. Back through again. I want to get reasonably good on each side. Just give her a tap in the side there because she bumped into me. Just let her rest. You'll notice that the horse will be good on one side or slightly better on one side than the other side. As she comes into me, I'll back her back into position, get her out towards the float, and then between me and the float. I'm not too worried about where she stops over the other side because I'm just going to push her back to where she should be anyway, and then ask her to come across. And give her a praise. Once you're happy with that, we can look at bringing the ramp of the float down and doing the same thing. Okay, so now we're going to do the same as before, and we're going to push from one side to the other side between me and the float with the ramp down without knocking into me. As I get closer to the ramp, I need the horse to walk across the ramp. Relax over whatever side you're working on. Make the gap a little bit closer and ask to push it past again. Other way. when you're happy with that, make the gap a little bit closer. Get that quadrant 4 around. Came in on a bad angle there, so just release her off and we'll start again, have another go. Have to get the angle right. When she barges into you, give her a little tap. Back around the other side. Give around a couple of little taps again and start again. Block her, ask her to go back, ask her to come across, block her, go back. Every time you get a slight improvement, give a release. Had a slight improvement there, so released. Just letting her relax a bit. Slight improvement, so I just release and ask for more next time. Okay, a good improvement there, still not what I'm looking for. Coming across on a 45. Ideally we want to come straight across. Maybe I'll have to move with her as she comes across the ramp to block her from coming across on a 45. Out the side again, get quadrant 4 around, see if I can get her to come across straight. Still wanting to come off on a 45, so give her a little tap and we'll start again. Back around again, push it quadrant 2 across, quadrant 4, quadrant 5, and that's a lot better. That possibly could be good enough now to process on to the next stage. When you're happy with the horse going comfortably across the ramp from one side to the next at a nice speed, we can then change the direction from one side of the float to the other side of the float, to the inside of the float and the outside of the float. I'm going to process forward. I suggest maybe if you're new at this, do a bit more of the going across the ramp before you change it to going into the float, just to make it a little bit easier for you. Okay, what we're going to do is just going to now push forward into the float using the same technique as moving from left to right of the float. Just going to let her rest. This is a new float. Well, she hasn't seen this one before, and it's a little bit tighter on the inside than what she's used to probably. She's been on a float once before with the owner, and it took a considerable amount of time to get her to go on. What we're doing with the training is that's exactly what it is. It's training. We're training the horse to go on the float and to go on the float all the time. We don't want to get the horse on the float, we want to train the horse to go on the float. Alright, between takes I just release and give her a little stretch and ask her to go back on again. Just working on getting that forward motion. At this stage, what will happen is the horse that you're probably working with will look for ways out of not going on the float. So we're about to see what Blue does. Once she gets to a certain point, they'll start looking for alternative ways to not go on the float. At that stage you need to be able to correct, block and correct to get the horse on the float. You'll notice that the last 2 times that we've asked, she's done exactly the same thing and gone off to the right. So I'm going to correct it this time. And she does it again, so I'm going to correct again. And then I'm going to ask her to go on. You notice how I'm not getting off the ramp this time, not until she puts a little bit of effort in. I'll correct, and I'll ask her to forward motion again. When I see a little bit of effort, I'll let her relax. And then I'm going to let her stretch a bit, and we'll ask again. Sure enough, she does the same thing. So I correct by pushing quadrant 4 around and then asking quadrant 5 to come back up. Push quadrant 4 around. Now working with a thoroughbred here, so she's a little bit sensitive, so I don't want to be too, we're only going to about level 2 of the pressure maximum. Some horses 3 or 4 of the pressure even. Depends on who you're working with. You just have to customize your pressure to the horse that you're working with. Let it relax as I would have done from left to right of the float, but this time it's going to be in the float and out of the float. So you can relax in the float. Alright, we've got 2 feet on the ramp at the moment, so next time I ask her, we're going to start asking, see if we can get 4 feet on. Goes off to the side again, so I will ask her to come around again, staying on the ramp, pushing her around, not getting off the ramp myself. Alright, I released the pressure there because even though she went to the stage where I was last time, she did it quicker than what she did the time before. Right, what we're going to do now is just fast forward a little bit through the same. Okay, so I quickly removed the head divider. Just being a young horse, I don't want the rope getting caught on anything. And we're going to ask for 4 feet to go on the ramp now. And then we're going to release the pressure. Just let her relax. Now, if she comes off by herself, it's all well and good at the moment. So I'll just release and let her come back off the ramp. I asked for a bit of forward motion before I came off the ramp though. So we'll just do that again. And ask her to go on all 4 feet. Just pushing quadrant 5. Just guiding with quadrant 1. Now if she comes back, that's fine. I'm not going to try stop her, but I'm going to stay on the ramp. I'm going to correct her, then I'm going to ask her to go back on again. This is important. When she gets it right, and I'm pleased with her, or she gets it slightly better, I will then come off the ramp. Now I come off the ramp and let her have a stretch. Let's go come around again, quadrant 4. Right. Lunge her back onto the ramp. Don't come off the ramp until I get improvement. I'll have to correct her from on the ramp. Pushing whatever quadrant I need to get the direction I need. Quadrant 4 around, a little bit of 2. Back her up a little bit. Back on again. Quadrant 4 around. And all 4 legs back up. Quadrant round. Quadrant round. And back up onto the float. Right, now at this point, I'm noticing that the pads on the float are a little bit tight squeeze for her at the moment, so what we're going to do is probably leave the session at this and use a float, my float. This is somebody else's float, it's not the client's float, and we're going to use my float, which doesn't have the big pads in the middle there on the inside. This gives her a bit more room to slide in, and when she's got the hang of that, then we'll go back to putting her onto a different float. What we're going to do now is just going to show you a quick clip of what happens when you push the horse a little bit far. Now she's going to go over to the other side of the float, you'll notice now. What she's complaining about is not actually going on the float, but it's because there's pads on both sides, it's a little bit tight for her. Horses are claustrophobic. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how we work through this, because it's important that you don't finish on something where a lesson is not quite right. You need to finish on a good note. So I'm going to keep correcting her, and just until I get back to where I was before. So we're going to push it quadrant 4 around and then ask her to come forward again. Now I'm not going to actually ask her to go all the way on the float today, but I do want her to go all the way back on for the 4 feet before we ask or we use another float. Now again, she's a sensitive horse, so it's important that you are assertive, but you keep your cool and don't get angry. At the moment, she's not being naughty, she's just having a bit of a hissy fit. Now, throwing her toys out of the cot. But if you don't get that bum around when she goes down the side of the float, you could end up teaching your horse to drag you down the paddock, which is ideally not a good idea either. So you want to avoid teaching a bad habit of that. So I'm just going to make sure I keep getting the head round, I keep getting the bum round, and I keep asking for forward motion. Make sure I get that head round so she doesn't drag me down the side of the float. Gas can come round. Just taking the pressure as high as I can without her losing losing the plot and just going totally pear-shaped. I still want her to focus, but I still need her respect. Just pushing, just guiding quadrant 1 and working quadrant 4 with her at the moment. That's all I need to at the moment. It seems to be keeping her under control and where I want her to be, and I'll just keep repeating. Alright, once we get back to the front 2 feet on the float, it's better than what we were doing before, but it's not what we want. So I'm going to give her a long break, just standing right here with both feet on the float. Okay, she's had a good little rest standing there on the float. So I'm going to take her off again, and I'm going to ask her to go back on again. Pretty much guarantee that she'll do the same thing again, and we'll have to correct her. Ask her to go on. Goes around to the side. I get that quadrant around, that head round. And ask her to come back up and around again. Quadrant 4. Quadrant 4. Now on the opposite side. Now on the other side, back around the other side, working both sides of quadrant 4. And ask her to go back forward again, and rest. Okay, now we'll just finish off now, get those 4 feet back on the ramp. Pushing quadrant 5, there we go, and let it relax. And now we can call it a day and come back tomorrow and put her on the float. She's ready to go onto the float now. Let us think about that overnight. That was a 16-minute lesson.